Hey, and welcome to the Reset Podcast. Everything you need to know that your therapist probably never told you. Researched by experts, real-life experiences. This is Reset. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Reset Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today. We hope you're having a great week. And sit back, relax, and let's dive in.
We got a big topic today.
Self-esteem.
Well, I think it'd be a good time to share some social psychology. You know, I love my class, social psychology.
The class that you teach.
Yeah. And one of the probably the best, I don't know, my favorite lecture week is when we talk about low versus high self-esteem. Just because so many of the students think they have high self-esteem, and then we kind of go through it, they're like, oh. And then some of the students who have like low self-esteem are like, oh, I have low self-esteem. And then we go kind of through the characteristics of it. They're like, oh, I actually do have high self-esteem. I think a lot of us would kind of confuse the aspect of maybe like being someone who's like loud or energetic, or maybe kind of, I don't know, the person that you just think in your head that just, man, they just own the room, as being high self-esteem. And that's not really the case at times. At times, the person with low self-esteem could be the person who is kind of masking their low self-esteem by being, I don't know, just overly
confident.
Maybe just that bold personality. And the reality of it is internally, they're just not really secure who they are.
Can you give us some criteria which would show us if we have low or high self-esteem?
Well, and maybe the best way to do is I always do like a versus, you know, like this versus that, like low self-esteem versus high self-esteem. So first we start with the concept of people with low self-esteem feuds with others. They just don't get along with others. They maybe walk through life having a lot of conflicts with other people, family members, friends, may go from job to job to job, have a hard time even, let's say, relating or connecting with their, I don't know, roommate or whatever it may be. And so if you're someone who feuds often with others, what kind of, think about taking a personal inventory of relationships, and that's considered low self-esteem. Versus high self-esteem is someone who gets along with others who they don't really have a lot of stuff in common with. They're easily, there are people who tell them, oh my gosh, you're just so easy to get along with. The person who is, even we would say, higher on the agreeableness characteristic, meaning like they're easily can connect with others, even though they might not agree with them when it comes to, say, politics, or if it's even religion, social issues, things like that. But yet they're able to still have the ability to adapt to different personality types and different relational situations.
What about getting along with people who are really good in the same field as you? Would that still be high self-esteem too?
The aspect in which you have high self-esteem, you don't see people within your profession, I think you're kind of talking about, as being competitors, but instead is you just see them as just who they are, which is people, colleagues, and they're able to celebrate them, which kind of gets into this concept in which people with low self-esteem have a lot of jealousy, or have jealousy for others. They're jealous of what people have. I wish I had that car. I wish I had a girlfriend. I wish that I had that opportunity. I wish I got that promotion. And so a lot of people with low self-esteem have this characteristic of jealousy, while, like you just talked about, people with high self-esteem have the ability to celebrate others, which is interesting because really jealousy, the antidote to jealousy is actually celebration. So let's say I'm jealous that you got a promotion that I wanted. I actually go and celebrate you. And so you can see where the emotional intelligence comes in with someone with high self-esteem, that the ability to recognize the moment in the situation, in spite of maybe how they feel, like I feel bummed I didn't get the job, they're able to, do a corrective emotional response and actually celebrate that person in that way. So someone with high self-esteem celebrates, affirms. Think about what comes to parenting. The aspect of or even marriage, the aspect of your role, let's say for me, a husband, a father, is someone that's able to celebrate my children, celebrate my wife in public, or just, within the home. Like that is a sign of high self-esteem, versus the aspect of walking around feeling not necessarily jealous of my kids or jealous of, let's say, my partner, but the concept in which, I feel jealous in terms of maybe people have something that I wish I had within my own personal life. The next one I would say is someone with low self-esteem blames others. They have the tendency to not claim it. They look at people and they say, well, I didn't do this because of this person, or if I only had this mom or dad, or if I only had if I had a partner who had more of this characteristic, then I would totally be nicer or be respectful, or yeah, I would love them more, but I would say I love them more, but I don't see this from them. So they blame others for either the lack of character that they have, or they blame others for just their problems, or they blame others for reasons why they haven't gotten certain things they want, or they blame others just for who they are.
Just the way they behave.
That's right. And so versus someone with high self-esteem takes responsibility. And we really say in this case, they take extreme ownership and responsibility of who they are, of their actions and things like that.
Probably really good at apologizing then.
100%. You think about coworkers or people you worked with, or if you're a boss, or even when it comes to people even you dated, let's say going back in times when you're dating people, is a lot of times relationships and dating don't go well in the end, because usually dating someone or one person has low self-esteem. They blame others, blame you. You think about the aspect of personality disorders, in terms of, let's say, borderline personality disorder, where a lot of times they walk around life blaming others, blaming their husband, blaming their boyfriend, but usually blaming the people who are closest to them. And so what happens is that they walk around blaming, they don't take responsibility or ownership for it. So there's no personal growth, but also there's no relational growth. And so you have two people, let's say, with high self-esteem, they have the ability to take ownership for their responsibility. Even it's like, let's say it's 0.1% your fault, let's say, whatever the situation is. Someone with high self-esteem has no problem taking that 1.01% and claiming it and owning it, and feels confident about it afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course I won't own it. Of course I won't do it because that's my fault. The next one would be someone with low self-esteem holds grudges. Where they are someone who just holds on to things for too long. It could be past relationships. They have a hard time forgiving someone. They are someone who, you hear the people that are just still bitter. They're still bitter in life, bitter about situation, bitter about choice, and not going their way, and just hold on to it. Versus someone with high self-esteem is quick to forgive. There's someone who is quickly moves forward in a healthy way, that they're not one to just relinquish just out of, I need to. They relinquish because it's out of health. Like, I need to learn to release, relinquish, and forgive quickly situations, relationships, things like that, because they recognize it's good for who they are. I
really like that. They relinquish out of health. That's a really good thing to stick on a Post-it note in your brain.
When you think about people who hold grudges, the bitterness is basically them walking around, let's say, with a sticky note in their brain of everything that went wrong or should have happened or could have happened. And they just replay it every day. They wake up, they play the same record, CD, what do they call it these days? Playlist, Spotify?
Probably playlist.
Yeah, their Spotify playlist, whatever it may be. And the last one here is the fact is that people with low self-esteem are ruled by their past, which kind of goes along with the last one, meaning they live through the past. And so they don't necessarily look to the future for hope. And they're constantly talking about their past, what could have happened, what should have happened, versus people with high self-esteem are motivated by the future. They recognize, they have more hope in their mindset. There are people who they recognize, yeah, there's things that happened in the past, they heal from it because they're able to forgive, like the last one I was talking about, but they're really motivated by the future. They're looking forward to one day finishing school, one day able to start this career or to get this, fill in the blank, whatever it may be. And so, when you're ruled by your past, it just kind of, unfortunately, there's no growth mindset. While you see with the characteristics of high self-esteem, that you really do have a growth mindset that comes around it, while low self-esteem is really a fixed mindset, and their mindset is really fixed on the past or a past issue, problem, or relationship that just didn't go their way.
It's like you get stuck and then you can't move forward. People who live in the past, they can't get over things, they can't just move on, and so there's no growth because you're stuck.
That's right. And it's actually one I forgot. I thought it might be important for us to talk about is the aspect in which people with low self-esteem uses others versus people with high self-esteem sacrifices for others. So you think about it in terms of their relationships. Like, you don't have value for me unless I could use you in some way. And so you have people walking around wanting only relationships that only gives them something that they want, adds something to their life, versus someone with high self-esteem recognizes, like, a lot of my purpose and who I am as a person comes from sacrificing for other people, out-sacrificing other people. Like, I want to come from a place of giving versus taking. And people with low self-esteem, they just don't like to be around people they feel like that just don't give them worth and value because of who that person is. I mean, like a lot of times they will have friends that in their mind elevates them because of who that person is. They like to be around famous people, or like to be around people who have money, or like to be around people who can give them some type of, let's say an edge or whatever it may be in life. And so, and not necessarily that is wrong per se to have, let's say, those type of friendships, but they only look for those people. Mm-hmm. And so the moment you don't have value for them, people with low self-esteem usually don't have connection with you. They ghost you, as what the kiddos say these days.
That's sad.
And a lot of this is actually driven by the aspect of culture, if you didn't know that. Like we live in a Western culture, which is an individualistic culture that we live in, which really means that our self-esteem, based on where we live in our country, is really based upon us progressing forward as an individual, versus if I was working with a client, let's say from a collectivist culture, so that'd be from, let's say from, background, let's say is Asian, right? Coming from Japan, China, what happens is a collectivist culture flips where their self-esteem is actually based around their family, their group. If my group or my family's progressing, then I do feel better. I have higher self-esteem. And so a lot of this we got to realize it is culturally based. And so the list that I gave you is really just an overall blanket, but then you get into the aspect of the culture you live in. And so let's just say you have a client that's from, Japan. And so, and they're like, let's say first generation, living in America, is the fact that if their family isn't progressing, if their family isn't right, feel healthy, isn't whole, then as an individual, they could be progressing. Their self-esteem could be highly affected, the fact that their family is not increasing, because for them, I'm as good as my family is. I'm as good as my group is, my core is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so to go on with that, let's look more about like low self-esteem. Clinically, we see people with low self-esteem that they usually have more anxiety issues, depression issues. It could be journal anxiety. It could be the aspect of major depression. They tend to lean more towards having ED, eating disorders. And so people with eating disorders, kind of makes sense, a little logical that they probably have low self-esteem and just have a unhealthy relationship with others, but also with self. Usually are cutters, self-mutillators, which honestly, just like with eating disorders, which is another way to even, I would say a lot of times the eating disorder is a self-mutilating habit. Kind of makes sense where that someone with low self-esteem and that they would lead into wanting to hurt themselves and who they are, and loneliness. I mean, you think about a lot of people with low self-esteem, they just don't have great relationships because the relationships are really based around, in so many ways, feuds or just blaming others, or the aspect of holding grudge. Like that's just not a good recipe to have healthy relationships. Like, people just don't want to be around you. And so then, you think about just by the characteristics that we talked about, and then you have this negative self-view of life and self. Who does that attract in your life? And it doesn't really attract probably healthy people. But even if you have some in your life, here's what I found with people with low self-esteem is that they feel that their partner does not love them. So an interesting part about that is you could have a partner, let's say it's the spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, who does love you, loves you tremendously. There's proof of it. I think about this when it comes to even marriage counseling, that I get, let's say a spouse says, I don't feel like my spouse doesn't love me. I don't feel loved by them. And then the other spouse is like, well, here's a reality check. And they start talking about habits, things they said, things they do, acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time that they're doing. And they say, how can you tell the therapist that I don't love you based on what I've done? And that actually the other partner usually doesn't deny, like, well, yeah, you do that for me. And so you realize is that people with low self-esteem, they have a hard time either feeling the love from other people, recognizing love of other people. In many ways also creates, we would say, like a confirmation bias, where if you're someone with low self-esteem, that, like, let's say in a marriage, you just have you just recognize the bias of which I'm not worth or value. And that's what you see. You have a hard time seeing what the partner has done for you. And that's why I say to a lot of people who are married to someone with low self-esteem is there's just not enough love to make them feel whole. until in many ways it sounds odd, and unless they start recognizing that they need to love themselves first. And so in those type of relationships, they have the immense amount of rejection that they feel, even though it might not actually be there, or being criticized. Like, you have a hard time holding them accountable because they take accountability as criticism. But here's the crazy stat I always like to tell my students is people with low self-esteem usually do not stay with college roommates. Matter of fact, freshman year, specifically freshman year women. So women freshman year usually do not stay with their freshman year roommate, while most men do.
What happens if your freshman roommate got kicked out?
Well, that's different, obviously.
Okay.
But in terms of just personality, personality issues or things like that. Think about this, think about your freshman year roommate. Did you actually stay with them? Is that because of you or because of them? Mm-hmm. But I think what happens is people naturally, just like with addicts, people who have low self-esteem, they naturally just don't do relationships well. And if you think in terms of if you have a really bad freshman year or just didn't go the way you wanted, there ends up being a blame game with people with low self-esteem. So then who are they blaming? Well, who's the person closest to them? Well, it's their roommate. And so there's this aspect of, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking of all the girls that I became roommates with my second year of college, and it's because we became friends through our major. My roommate ended up having to go home and got kicked out. One of my girlfriend's roommates was literally a horrible human and drug addict. Yes and no. I guess it's more situational, right? If it's a healthy, quote unquote, human in your room, maybe. But
well, if it's a healthy
there's
person,
so many different ways of why you don't stay with your roommate.
There could be. Obviously, there's situational issues, we would say.
Or you just become better friends with someone else.
There could be that as well. But they're looking in terms of rating self-esteem and who keeps and sticks with the roommate, who doesn't.
Yeah.
And maybe
friendships in general too.
Well,
right?
and I go back to the aspect of the trait of agreeableness. Mm-hmm. Maybe the fact is, going back to people with low self-esteem just don't have. They're not high in the agreeableness. Mm-hmm. They're more critiquing of self. Since you're more critiquing of self, you're critiquing of other people.
Yeah.
And so how you treat others is really how you treat yourself internally. So obviously there's a variety of reasons. I always thought that's just a fun thing to tell.
No, it is fun, but
freshman
totally.
or sophomore.
But I was just thinking about how many of my friends actually didn't end up living with their roommate because we all wanted to be roommates. Do you know what I'm trying to say? To make people not feel bad just because you didn't live with your roommate freshman year. You could put with a random person.
I would just stick with my roommate the whole time, but I'm kind of...
Mine left me.
Well, we could talk about that later. But that said, what you're really saying
I could have lived with her forever, though. She was great.
You upgraded. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm trying to say.
You upgraded.
There are certain situations where I think you upgrade, or you, I always got along with my roommate. We always got along. And even my other roommates that ended up becoming, they're now my best friends, though, from college. You have a group of friends from college that end up becoming your core group. And I think second year of college, it's why don't we all live together?
Me, on the other hand, after the first semester, I stopped living with my first year.
So what does that mean? You have very low self-esteem.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I actually look back at it, and I had the high enough self-esteem to say I'm exiting out of this thing because he was severely moody.
See, boundaries.
And he was definitely the low self-esteem guy. Never want to go out, never want to do anything. Woe was me. He also was the person in which he blamed everything. Oh my gosh, he blamed everything on everyone from his girlfriend to his mom. And I look back at that, my poor young self was like, I don't think this is normal. But I don't know what to do with this. And I just remember my buddy being like, dude, if you're not happy, you're at the age, you just get out of that situation.
Totally. Sorry, that was a tangent.
Yeah. And so I get out of that situation.
Yeah.
So
what I'm saying is yes and
I
no.
upgrade. And I upgraded as well. There we go.
But I see
we all
what
upgraded.
you're saying, and I think it's based situation by situation, But it is interesting to think, why am I not getting along with my roommate, to self-evaluate? So I do think there is for sure truth and value in that statement. 100%. I just was thinking I knew less people who actually stayed with there.
Well, I think it's usually the healthy one probably usually exits out.
Yeah.
While
that's true.
Probably the unhealthy roommate in so many ways stays because they probably don't recognize they're the problem.
Yeah. Okay, so these are all low. Those were all low self-esteems. Did we hit all of those?
We hit all those, but here's
Okay.
the little plot twist in all this.
Dun, dun,
Is
dun.
yeah, there it is. Dun dun dun. Can you have too much high self-esteem?
I feel like I think of Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
He's so funny. He's my guy.
So when I think of Gaston, I think of a complete narcissistic human.
Which is so funny. I really relate to him.
Oh my!
I
Do you want me
do.
to take this out?
That's
I'm the editor.
no, that song about him. He eats like 12 dozen eggs. No one.
I've never seen you eat 12 dozen.
I know,
eggs.
but I just feel like no one's.
Every morning.
I thought the
you
funniest.
walk
I mean,
into
I could be
the
wrong about the quote. Doesn't he say no one spits like him?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like no one spits like Gaston.
Oh my!
Why is that
gosh.
so cool? I do.
I
Like,
think we need to have an intervention.
I don't know, but I do relate to him. I don't know why he's so funny. Anyways, yes, there is this dark side of, I would
just
say,
think of a cocky,
yes,
yucky,
well,
yucky
what's the
kind.
big word everyone says it? What is it?
I said narcissism already.
Yes,
Narcissistic.
did you? There it
well, I
is.
said Gaston makes me think overconfident narcissist.
Yes, and the dark side of having too much self-esteem is a narcissist, which
Darth
we all
Vader.
know. But at the end, he's so kind.
Yeah, maybe he's not.
He turned around. It wasn't
Okay.
really. He got a tough time.
I'm sorry.
Man. He
Continue.
didn't know his own
you
father.
said the dark side
Yeah,
though, and I
and
think it just got
I
in
know,
my brain.
I know, but it's the dark.
Emperor.
Yeah,
He's
wow,
a
that
narcissist.
guy's a narcissist. That guy wants. How does he think he could actually create and develop this type of corporation that is galaxy wide?
Because he's a narcissist.
I guess so. And
Okay,
there you go.
Continue.
So the guys have so high self-esteem that we have an issue.
Yes.
So if you think about personality disorders, you used to call it access to disorders. Is personality disorders, it comes from one of two things. Number one, really low self-esteem. So then you act out sexually with other people, you act out through chaos and conflict and that kind of stuff, right? Or the aspect of you have such high self-esteem, then you get in the category of a narcissist or a narcissist personality disorder, which has been a lot of stuff people talking about this. Like, this is nothing new. I mean, tons of stuff on TikTok and on Instagram about people going through a divorce through a narcissist, which is really where you see the worst of them, to people being completely, I think of all my clients who found people on Tinder and Hinge where they just found narcissists who use and abuse and they lose you, right? Like,
Or trauma from childhood. Maybe
100%.
A parent was narcissistic.
So here's where we got to really nail down, because I think we use this we use some words in psychology too easy, like, oh my gosh, you're so bipolar. It's like, no, I don't think they are. I think a lot of times we say, oh my gosh, he's such a narcissist. And I think we need to be like, well, what is the characteristics of a narcissist?
Tell us.
So here's the characteristics of narcissists I think that are key. And obviously there's more than this, but this is just, I feel like, the overlining or the umbrella approach towards it. A person who takes advantage of other people to reach their goals. They will cheat, lie, do what they can. There's really no loyalty to them to get to the top they want to be. It's also someone who expects to be recognized as superior or special without having any superior or special accomplishments. They just think they're number one, they're the top, they're the best. Why? Because I should just have that, and they haven't quite earned it. It's also someone who expects constant attention, admiration, positive reinforcement from others. Like, they need constantly told how great they are, how amazing they are. They envy other people and believe that others are envy of them. Meaning, like, they talk about someone who's like really high up, right? And they want people to envy them just as much as they envy that one person. So they want people to bow down to them, which is
So yucky.
it is yucky. It's just, but there's, right now we're probably thinking ourselves, we all think about ourselves, there's someone like that in our life. Someone who's preoccupied with thoughts and fantasies of great success and enormous sense of, attractiveness. They obsess about their power. They think about these grandiose thoughts about how attractive they are, how successful they're going to be, how intelligent they are. While, like, the friends, side notes, right? The guy, let's say in this case, leaves for the restroom. We're all like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? He thinks he's a narcissist, right? Like, we have these side conversations about them. Mm-hmm. Someone who lacks the ability to empathize with feelings and emotions of others. That's a key one. Like, if you're dating someone that's a narcissist, they just cannot empathize with how you feel. They tell you, get up, grow up, buck up, right? and they just can't feel other people's emotions. They really lack it. Think about parenting as well. Is arrogant with attitudes and behavior, meaning that they just, once again, they inflate who they are, their ego. Has an expectation of special treatment that's unrealistic, meaning like they expect to be treated in a way that's just, I can't meet those needs. No one can meet those needs. And so let's say you're dating someone who's a narcissist. What happens is you feel like, my gosh, I can't ever become that person you want me to be. Sometimes it's the aspect, the relational aspect, feeling aspect, even the sexual aspect. They just have such high standards on purpose, so you can never meet that need for them. So you're always continuing to try and make them happy and please them. So here's the question for you.
This sounds like Gaston, I'm just saying.
Well,
he is the perfect example of this.
And I'm so
sorry I interrupted you. What's the question?
Well, I don't like Gaston. Who statistically is more likely to be narcissistic, a man or a woman?
Automatically, my brain just says man. And I don't know if it's because I'm a woman. But I just feel like I see it more in men.
100%.
Oh,
100%.
Well, there you go.
And a lot of probably has to do with the aspect of testosterone. A lot of these characteristics are really driven by, testosterone per se. But yeah, more men than women. Can women be narcissistic? Yes. I remember in my clinical program, we used to talk about, most likely that women are most likely to be borderline, which is borderline is kind of like the female version of narcissism. But men can be borderline as well. But statistically, more women are borderline, more men are narcissistic.
Welcome to the part of the show where we talk about what we can learn from animals.
Yo, listen up. Did you know animals teach us about life? Like how to be a good husband or wife? Or maybe how to be a good parent or friend? Needless to say, lessons that will help us out in the end. So open up your heart and open up your mind to hear about which animal today that we will find.
You know how I love my documentaries.
I think the world knows by now.
I love more than a documentary series.
Whoa.
8 to 9 hours on one subject matter that I had no idea about, but probably learned in high school, just totally forgot about it or didn't care.
It's probably the latter.
That's probably true. So this one was interesting because it was about the animals in the African bush area. And as you know, I spent some time in the African bush in West Africa. And here's the interesting part. It was talking about how the lion is not really king of the kingdom, of the animal kingdom there, but actually the wild dog. And these wild dogs kind of look like maybe a size of, I don't know, like a
coyote?
Yeah, like a coyote. I was thinking it's probably different forms of coyote. It's like a California coyote. You know what I mean? A little smaller. And so the interesting part about it was just talking about how that the wild dogs actually kill and eat lions. So what happens is the pride lion usually has that main male leader. The pack of dogs, wild dogs in Africa they come 30 strong, even more at times. And one dog will go out and meet the lion. This dog's small. It's probably 30, 40 pounds, not that big.
Brave.
But think about cats at home. You're like done like the little red light, like laser light. The cat goes back and forth and it's like zoned in on it and goes back and forth with it and that kind of stuff. Well, think about this. This one dog goes up to this lion and goes back and forth in front of it. So it's like going left, going right, going left, going right. And so this lion, right, is going like kind of looking back and forth like you do, like cats do at home with the light, and distracts this lion. And so in the meanwhile, when he's being successful at it, and at times the lion gets aggressive and kind of goes forward and then backs up and still goes back and forth. From behind comes the pack of 30 or more wild dogs attacking this lion from behind, taking turns until it passes away, and then they eat it. And so the wild dog ends up being top of the food chain.
That's crazy.
You think to yourself like, well, what's the point of the story? A few points here is that, first of all, what distracts us can kill us in so many ways, right? Figuratively, obviously. And sometimes we're distracted by something, not knowing that in the meanwhile, something else can be creeping or seeping into our life or our personality or whatever it may be.
Sneak attack.
Yes, a good old sneak attack. Also, never underestimate the small one, the weak one, the underdog. Sometimes that's the sneaky one. Sometimes that's one that could be outwitting us. Who knows? And here's the interesting fact about this, little side note. You think about the history of circus, which is also very interesting as well, that you've probably seen those old like pictures of the guy with the whip and the wooden chair in one hand, whip in the other, and trying to train this lion. They actually got that from witnessing or watching in the wild how this wild dog would, really distract this lion, really take control of this large animal just by really distraction. And so that's what the wooden chair is for. The wooden chair goes back and forth, and it mimics in so many ways what this wild dog does to the lion as a way to just capture the mind of this large animal. And so that's kind of interesting to me, was that tidbit of even the circus, how and why I always saw that picture. I'm like, why do they have a wooden chair? Like, the animal could override it if they wants to, but the chair becomes that one. It becomes like the light at home with the cat at home, goes back and forth. I always thought it was funny. I think about that proverb in the Bible that with multitude of accountability partners, you're better, you're stronger. In so many ways, I think that goes along with it. Like, who's your pack? Who rides with you? Who's the people? Are you more a lone soldier type of thing? Is that better for you? Or is it more of like synergy can override something larger and bigger that you feel like it's, unattainable, or that's like a goal in life, or if that's even, something that you feel is just difficulty going through, you're better with a pack. And so I think that fact is, what is in front of you at times distracting you. It keeps something small that you're really not fearing in many ways, but unknowingly what else is creeping up that you don't realize because you're focused on the wrong thing.
So basically, go through life with community and together, and watch out for distractions.
And be careful of wild dogs if you live near wild dogs.
And now back to the show.
Okay, but what causes narcissism? Because those are some intense things.
Yeah, those are some intense characteristics where, if someone has that prolonging, and by the way, you can't be diagnosed with narcissism until age 18 and older. Although we have signs. There's actually a really good book called Every Teenager is a Narcissist. I forgot who the psychologist who wrote it.
That's fair.
We had to read it back in a clinical program, and you read it, you're like, yeah, I kind of see that. Then I kind of look at my 4-year-old, you're like, well, maybe every 4-year-old is a narcissist too.
Well, and teens are just trying to figure out who they are.
Totally.
So there's going to be a lot of selfishness and stuff. But
nature.
Yeah, is narcissism nature, nurture, both? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah,
Could we all potentially be narcissists?
Well,
be narcissists?
Yeah. So in theory, you would say that narcissist is mainly formed, not born. But here's some causes of narcissism. The first one's kind of interesting, which is the aspect of if your child, your baby, you're born with an oversensitive temperament at birth. The child that just nothing can ease them. They're constantly crying, constantly wanting more, being held. The fact is like they can't be comforted. And at some point, I get it. Like, we are kids, so at some point every baby has those moments, but we're talking about a continual. I was thinking about I used to teach this about 15, 17 years ago. I used to have this group called Popcorn, parents of prodigal children overcoming rebellion. There's no end part, just rebellion.
Okay, we just want to make sure.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And the whole point is I had this support group, weekly support group of parents who just really have really rebellious, narcissistic children from age 15 to 25, and really bad, and the interesting part is they all said this, no joke. I've seen these personality characteristics at age 2, which really see some personality coming out, right? And so they all said they're just unpleasable, not enough love makes them feel whole, which is interesting, right? So we see that there's some temperament in the birth, so there's some neuroatypicalness going on with their brain that, that's kind of bending them towards being more antisocial. Yeah, that kind of stuff, right? But here's some parenting stuff. So as parents, listen up.
Take notes, people.
Excessive admiration that is never balanced with realistic feedback. When you give your kiddos so much admiration with never saying the word no or giving realistic feedback, that's an issue. I'll give you an example. I remember when I had a client who was a narcissist, and he was raising another potential narcissist. And I remember where after the baseball game, so listen, they had a Little League baseball game. And after the baseball game, the kid did not hit a home run in the game. After his dad says, I'm taking out for ice cream because he hit that big home run. So the kid is 8 years old. And he says to the kid, I'm not joking around, he said to the kid that, hey, I'm taking out for ice cream because he hit that big home run in the game. The kid says, I didn't hit the home run. Dad's like, oh yeah, he did. You are the big hitter. And so at that time, the wife and the mom in session said, is this healthy? Is this normal? No, it's not. But you can see where you create these scenarios that are lies in a kid's mind at a young age. And the dad is basically teaching him how to be this inflated ego and creating these distorted realities about him being awesome and amazing. It's really setting him up. And also, I think honest feedback. Like there's this aspect there's got to be balance. You can't always be great. No one's great 100% of the time. No one's awesome 100% of the time. No one wins 100% of the time. This is why, as you know, my kids have never beat me on Uno. They've never beat me on Connect 4. They never beat me when it comes to even Monopoly. So I give them deals they can't say no to because they need to learn how to lose. And then of course we got that basketball hoop that's about 6 foot tall, and they still yet not beat me there. I'm just saying, is some parents like, should I have my kid win all the time?
Maybe you are the narcissist.
I'm Gaston.
Because you've never let them win.
I'm just finally getting my opportunity to win. Here's another cause of one. Excessive praise for good behaviors or excessive criticism for bad behaviors in child. So think about this. Either you have the permissive parent that just constantly gives praise, right? Or you have maybe more of that authoritarian parent, which is constant criticism.
Never can do anything right.
Never do anything right. I feel like my parents' love is conditional. Until I get that condition set, it's just criticism. And over time, what happens is criticism builds this callus. The callus, then you think about like with your skin, there's this layer that has to just harden, and that's the ego. And so then they always have to show and pretend and tell everyone they're so great because they're so sad when they get criticized, and they want to avoid criticism as much as possible. And so they're like that child that never grows up. They're like that 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old that never grows up because they can't take criticism or be held accountable. Another cause of a narcissist is overindulgence or overevaluation by parents or other family members or peers. And let me tell you how this one really works. It's when family members are always saying, oh my gosh, you're so good looking. You're such a good looking kid. And they're constantly talking about like the looks of the child at a young age. And you and I discuss this when it comes to even like our daughter per se, is I think there's something where we keep saying, oh my gosh, she's so good. You're so good. You're so adorable. And she is. At what point do we start talking about the aspect of activities that she does? You're so athletic, or you're so talented artist. I love how you drew this. And we start pointing out other things. I don't think we realize how much we're conditioned, especially for daughters, to say certain things. But we talk about how important that is to kind of create a balance, which kind of leads into the next cause, which is the aspect of being praised for exceptional good looks or abilities by adults. And so you think about when it comes to teachers or even coaches. So if you have a kid that just does everything right all the time and they just never fail, right? Their ego.
Creative perfectionist too.
They have this pressure. And so when they don't do well in their mind, they lie. Narcissists lie. They lie about their successes. They lie about who they are, the inflations. And that's what they do to avoid hearing criticism from other people.
Which is different than encouragement. I just want to pause and say it is so good to praise our kids for things. We're talking about overly praising. We're talking about, like Joe had said, never giving them any kind of constructive criticism back.
Everything goes back to all these characteristics or causes is the aspect of there needs to be a balance of reality versus continuing to cause distortion of reality of who the person is. So it's not overly criticizing. It's not overly praising.
Yes.
Honestly, is meeting where they're at. Well, I go back to the example of telling your kid to hit a home run when they didn't hit a home run.
Right.
And I think that could be seen as different ways of like a parent saying you're the best out there when they really were not the best out there.
Yes.
You know? Next one here is severe emotional abuse in childhood. This is huge. When a child is emotionally abused or I would even say psychologically abused at times as a child, right? Where their emotions aren't met, they're not being empathized with, their emotions don't matter, their wants are not being met, and when it comes to needs and things like that, is that the kids, that wound starts. And I go back to is at some point they had to have a defense mechanism. They had to create a defense around that. And so they have this increased inflated ego that's just not realistic as a way to just, it's like building a pseudo self, the self that they always wish they had, or the self they wish they knew dad would love, or dad would actually would want, or mom would want, or something like that. And so then that creates that. Having an unpredictable or an unreliable caregiving from parents. So they're talking about attachment theory now. So when your parents have ambivalent attachment, right? Your parents are unpredictable. Example, mom tells me I'll pick you up at 3:15 in the parking lot. She doesn't come till 4:15. Why are you late? No reason. When your parents' yes is not yes and your no's aren't no's, it's unpredictable. The love is unpredictable. That's weird. Sometimes I come home, they're happy to see me, they're excited. Sometimes I come home, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. Dad comes home from work, they hear the garage door, either they're happy and excited, or the garage door and they're anxious and like, okay, were they going to notice that I did wrong? And it becomes like this, classical conditioning around parenting, right? Around love. And so it's unpredictable. What happens is they don't know what is right or wrong. They don't know how to make mom and dad happy. And so if you think about unpredictable parenting, right, when it comes to the aspect of feeling, connected with a healthy attachment, what happens is they learn not to have a healthy attachment to significant others like wife, girlfriend. And so what they do is they hurt others before they get hurt in their mind. They'll push others away before they feel like they're going to get pushed by them. And so there's no real vulnerability. There's really no long-term loyal connection. And so they torch or self-sabotage the aspect of relationships. And lastly, I would say is when you're valued by your parents as a means to regulate their own self-esteem, meaning that your parents only feel as good as you are as a kid.
Wow.
And so we kind of talked about this for our last episode of the podcast, where some parents just want their value as a parent is based on their kids' successes. They're living vicariously through them.
I was just going to ask that. Is that also if you really wanted to be a singer and your kid sings, you just...
Yes. Yeah. And so this parent pushes you to be the best and the greatest, or the parent will mask your issues. Like, for example, I just gave up the whole baseball one, is they will say, oh my gosh, you should have won that. You're the best singer out there. Or, you know what? Don't listen to that coach. You should have made that team. You didn't and they start belittling other people on the team. So they start blaming others. See, low self-esteem, right? Yeah. And so, and that's where kind of like this weird dichotomy where this high self-esteem to a point of darkness, right? Dark sense of self really goes back to and trends to what a narcissist doesn't really have high self-esteem. If anything, they have a low self-esteem, but this distorted self that they create is to make other people believe that they have such high self-esteem and make people believe. Because a lot of narcissists have no problem going up to girls, going up and asking people out, going and getting that job, going up and making their thoughts and their feelings being known when it comes to wanting things like, I want to be front of the line. I want to be sat down right now. And so they don't see rules being for them. They believe that rules are opportunities for me to cross over them and to get what I want.
And then they can lie about it if no one's watching.
100%. And that's why they always have the best stories and the greatest this and the grandiose that.
Wow.
And so you see where the causes can really do is you create a person at a young age who just doesn't know who they are. Instead, they're being told there's something that they're not, greater than who they are, not reality, and they can never reach that potential expectation. So, but what they do, they go with it, and they'll lie, they'll cheat, do what they can to keep that going in their mind, who they are. Which a lot of that wounds come from what? Childhood, a mom and dad not getting that balance of critiquing and affirmation, being overly praised for their looks. Unfortunately, that creates an ego.
What do you do then if you feel like, wow, I am the narcissist? And what do you do if you feel like, oh, I have a narcissist in my life? What kind of boundaries and how do I handle them?
Well, if you're the one who thinks, man, I have narcissistic symptoms, qualities, or flat out the diagnosis, first of all, let's get professional help. Work with someone, do the work. It's not going to be quick. Start understanding, recognizing how does come in, when does my insecurities get triggered, so then I mask it through ego, that kind of stuff. So get some professional help.
So there's healing available.
100%.
Yes, awesome.
A second thing I would do is also start asking people and be vulnerable. Do I at times come off wrongly? Do I make you feel anxious? When I'm gone, do you feel more at peace than when I'm present? I mean, really hard questions to ask, and having true friends say, I want being open for truth and healthy criticism for there to be change, and not take it and be defensive. If you do those two things, inviting in healthy criticism and taking it, and also getting their professional help and coming in and saying, I have these qualities, I need help, without wanting to blame, complain, then there you go. That's a good start. Well, if you're someone who, let's say, married to a narcissist, or a friendship with a narcissist, or maybe your boss is a narcissist, a few things. There's a great book called The Dance of Anger that is really good. It talks about just understanding how to deal with those personality types, which in many ways it's like, whoever does the least has the most control. Also, arguing, debating, lecturing, yelling, and belittling is their game. Do not involve that with them. They will always win. And just understanding boundaries, parameters. If you're married to one, or significant other is a narcissist, well, if you really do love them and care about them, then I would really approach it and say that you have some narcissistic characteristics I'm really worried about. And I say either you get therapy, we get therapy together, but you need help. And this is when we got to remind ourselves that we really need to care more about the person than we do the relationship. Or another way to put it is care more about the friend than the friendship. A lot of people get so concerned about having a conflict with someone in the relationship that they're such peacemakers. They don't want to say anything that might hurt them, but then we're not really caring about the person. If we really care about the person, then changing, we'll confront them in a loving way, kind way, as much as we can. Here's the problem. A lot of narcissists are not going to believe it. A lot of narcissists are not going to get healthy in therapy, because a lot of times therapy is an opportunity to become a stage with the audience. And so when you go to couples therapy with a narcissist, a lot of times they use this as an opportunity to have a production and to use their tactics to avoid responsibility or to be vulnerable. And this is why narcissists, just like borderlines, go from therapist to therapist to therapist to therapist until they find a confirmation bias from the therapist, until they're ready to get the real help. Now, I will tell you this. Most people with narcissism, they start changing or desiring change or healing when they feel pain. I would say that loneliness and isolation creates this pain inside of them that says they got to change. And so when that happens, a lot of times we have to see the change. Not always. There's always circumstances. But if you know someone, a loved one, you talk to them about them. You confront them with love. Let them be aware of it. Odds are they're not going to handle it. They can't take criticism. But all you can do is kind of like the old school set it and forget it. You say it and say, hey, here it is. But make sure you have your boundaries and your parameters up. And I say this because there's such a spectrum with narcissism, where you have the very aggressive, abusive, manipulating kind, to then, people are just kind of on the mild part of it. Is get help then. If you're the person that's victim of a narcissist, find a professional that you could work with that could help you define boundaries, parameters, and how to word things to help that person, but also help you to manage it.
Thanks so much for listening to the Reset Podcast. We're so glad that you're here with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you left us a rating, a review, or hit that subscribe button, and share it with a friend that needs to hear this. We're here to help you live a better life. Overcome mental barriers that are holding you back from your full potential. Find free resources, our blog, and information for one-on-one coaching at theresetgroup.com. We'd love to connect with you on social media, so be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at The Reset Group. See you later.